Let me tell you. There are children who grow up inside houses that look normal from the outside. Windows clean. Lights warm. People smiling when guests arrive. Pictures of birthdays on the wall. But behind the quiet doors, something else lives there. A story that was never spoken, just absorbed. A child sits in the corner of a room, holding a toy that doesn't feel fun anymore. They watch their parents argue, not loudly, just sharply. Every sigh is a warning. Every pause is a countdown. Every broken moment feels like a message only they can hear. This is happening because of you. And no one ever says those words out loud. But the child feels them anyway, because children don't need sentences to understand blame. They learn it from the atmosphere. In homes like this, love is confusing. Some days it's soft and warm. Some days it's cold, distant, impossible to reach. So the child begins to track patterns. The tilt of their mother's head. The heaviness in their father's footsteps. The sound of a plate placed a little too hard on the table. They become detectives of danger, master readers of moods, expert predictors of emotional storms. Their childhood turns into a full-time job, keeping the peace. And somewhere along the way, this quiet little belief begins to grow. If I try harder, they'll be happier. If I behave perfectly, everything will stop hurting. If something goes wrong, it must be my fault. No one explains to the child that grown adults are carrying burdens that existed long before the child was born. No one explains that parents break too, sometimes in the worst ways. No one explains that some homes are built on unspoken wounds. So the child blames the only person they can: themselves. Years go by, and this belief becomes a personality. The child doesn't even notice it happening. They learn to apologize before they speak. They learn to walk without sound. They learn to smile even when it feels like their chest is collapsing. They learn to hide pain like it's a secret crime. If someone raises their voice, their heart races. If someone goes silent, they assume they caused it. If someone leaves, they think they pushed them away. They grow up with this constant background fear. I am too much. I am wrong. I ruin things. But here's the darkest part. Nobody around them realizes what's happening. Because children like this grow into adults who look kind, helpful, understanding, easygoing. Nobody sees the cost. Nobody sees the exhaustion. Nobody sees the war inside their mind. They're praised for being responsible, for being mature, for being the good one. But nobody notices that they didn't choose this personality. It was forged in survival. They weren't being responsible. They were being scared. They weren't mature. They were cautious. They weren't the good one. They were the blamed one. As they enter adulthood, the world becomes a strange reflection of their childhood. They choose partners who take advantage of their guilt. They choose friends who only reach out when they need something. They choose workplaces where the harder they try, the more is expected from them. Not because they want these things, but because their nervous system recognizes them. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. They hear someone sigh and feel the same childhood panic rise. They see someone upset and immediately scan themselves for mistakes. They live in a constant state of emotional debt, owing apologies for things they didn't do, and they don't know why. Until one day, something cracks. Maybe it happens during a small argument. Maybe it happens in the middle of the night, when their mind doesn't shut off. Maybe it happens when someone finally says, "Hey, why do you always say sorry?" Something shakes loose. A memory surfaces. A feeling rises, one they buried long ago. They realize they've been living like a problem instead of a person. They realize they've been holding their breath for years. And the moment they see this, even for a second, something shifts. It's not healing yet. It's not clarity. It's more like the faintest crack of light under a closed door. The beginning of a realization. Maybe it wasn't me. But healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in moments. Small, uncomfortable moments that feel almost wrong at first. The first time they say no. The first time they don't explain themselves. The first time they express frustration without apologizing. The first time they realize someone else is actually at fault. And it feels strange. Guilty. Wrong. Unnatural. Because they spent their entire life believing that being loved means being small. So learning otherwise feels like rebellion. Slowly, they begin noticing things. How they flinch at disappointment. How they freeze when someone's upset. How they rush to fix things that aren't theirs to fix. They trace these reactions back to childhood. And the picture becomes clear. They didn't grow up wrong. They grew up responsible for emotions they never created. They were punished for storms they didn't summon. They carried guilt that was never theirs. They were never the problem. They were the scapegoat. The emotional shock absorber. The easy target for adults who couldn't face their own pain. And when this realization settles, something powerful happens. For the first time, the child inside them, the one who waited for years to be understood, is finally seen. Not blamed. Not dismissed. Not silenced. Seen. The adult looks at that child and thinks, "You were trying your best. You were scared. You were alone. But you survived." And survival is not something to feel sorry for. It's something to be proud of. Healing from this kind of childhood is not about waking up confident. It's not about suddenly feeling worthy. It's not about erasing the past. Healing is learning that you don't have to take responsibility for other people's storms anymore. Healing is letting discomfort exist without blaming yourself. Healing is accepting that you deserve softness, calmness, patience, things you never got. Healing is realizing that peace doesn't have to be earned through suffering. Healing is finally understanding this truth. You were never the problem. You were the child who believed you had to fix everything to stay loved. But now, you get to love yourself without conditions. You get to exist without apologizing. You get to be human, not perfect. You get to breathe. You get to take up space. You get to grow. And for the first time, the world feels a little less heavy. A little more possible. A little more yours. Because the story didn't end with you being the problem. The story begins when you learn you never were.